What's up, YouTube? This video is going to be called The Tale of the Green Dragon. This video is all about the car I'm driving right now, which is a 2001 Toyota Camry, and the long road journey, whatever you want to call it, that I've been on with this car over the past, I think it's been 2 months. It might be 3, and I might be in denial. It might be 3. So yeah, let's talk about this car and all of the trouble it's caused me. It's just a basic 2001 Toyota Camry LE. That means it has a 2.2 liter in a 4-cylinder motor. I found someone on Craigslist who was selling it for $400, saying that it was missing the battery and needed a new fuel pump, and that it should be back on the road with just those 2 things. And don't let me get too ahead of myself here. Why do I want a 2001 Toyota Camry? I have a Nissan GTR. I just picked up an M Coupe. I have a Raptor and a Tesla. Why do I want a 2001 Toyota Camry? Well, I've got a buddy who lost his job, and I'm sure he's watching this video. He's a really good guy, and he's kind of just been on this path of bad luck. There's a theme with this path of bad luck, because it has continued to this car. But anyway, I was looking for a cheap car for him that I could just buy and basically give to him so that he could get to job interviews. I was trying to help him get back on his feet. And I own a computer business, so I offered to trade the person a computer that was worth about $400 for this car. The guy said, I just so happen to need a laptop right now, so this could work out great, and I need to get rid of this car. So I drove over there and took a look at it. It's pretty dirty. But it seemed like it could get the job done. It's hunter green. I thought that was kind of cool. I've always loved hunter green. It also has the really like cheesy gold emblems, but gold emblems actually look kind of cool in hunter green. So, you know, I kind of got a good vibe about it, and I was just thinking, man, this could be quick. It was like the first or second day I was looking for cars. So anyway, I just parked the car in front of my house here. I'm going to continue the story inside. Alright, I'm back inside, and I'm ready to continue the tale of the Green Dragon. So, as I mentioned, I went out and looked at the car and spoke with the owner. He said that this was his wife's his wife's father's car, and that he had passed away and they were not using the car anymore. I'm just trying to get rid of it basically because it was sitting out in front of their house and it wasn't running, and it was a kind of an eyesore for them. So this gentleman that I purchased the car from, he was a golf pro, meaning that he worked at a golf course and he taught people how to play golf. He seemed like a really trustworthy guy. Mistake number 1, right? Sorry, my cat's getting in the way here, but whatever, she's cool. So, you know, I was at his house. His wife was there. They had like a kid that was probably, I think the kid was probably 10 or 12. He seemed really cool. I was inside their house. You know, we started doing paperwork because I said I wanted to buy it, and you know, let's go ahead and do this deal. And yeah, so I was sitting on the couch watching the Golden Compass with his wife and his kid while he was rummaging around trying to find all his paperwork. And I know that's probably like, why are you telling us that? But based on what happens later, that's why I think it's mentionable to say this. So we do all the paperwork. I go out to Costco, grab a battery. I had already ordered the fuel pump on Amazon because it was like $23. It was super cheap on Amazon Prime. So that same day, I think the next day, myself and a buddy of mine drove back out there with the battery and the fuel pump, and proceeded to get those things installed so we could drive it away. Well, first of all, the fuel pump was a little bit of a pain in the butt because although it did work with this vehicle, it required cutting the wires and reconnecting them, whatever you want to call it. There's some people will cheap out and they take electrical tape and just cover it in electrical tape when they, put the two bare wires together. I at least went the extra mile on that, and I brought out a heat gun and shrink tubing and all that stuff and soldered it the right way. So it worked. And I found out later that my fuel pump, all that shrink wrapping and stuff, that did work. But the car, even with the brand new battery, did not start. So then we drove out to Walmart, and that was around the corner. We grabbed a can of brake fluid. I'm sorry, it's really late here. Not brake fluid, brake cleaner, and sprayed that in the intake to see if we could get it to start with a little bit of extra fuel in the intake, and that didn't do anything either. So we were checking fuses and stuff because there seemed to be some gremlins going on inside the car, and we were there for an hour and a half probably, and we're like, okay, we got to get going. This is not what we were anticipating. So we kind of regrouped and came back again the next day and dug into fuses and stuff like that, and nothing was really working. So I just kind of got to the point there with the car that I wasn't quite sure what the next step was, and that I knew the guy was giving me a little bit of pressure about getting it off the front of his house because of the HOA and stuff. And this guy lived in a pretty nice neighborhood in city of Carlsbad, San Diego County, which is a pretty nice area to live. His house, if I had to guess, not that this stuff matters, but if I had to guess, his house was probably worth $700,000, $800,000. So I trusted him a lot based on his family and his job and his house, which as a very foreshadowed that I shouldn't have trusted him. So I towed the car away to my house where I could work on a little bit more. And my buddy and my neighbor also, we had spent some time messing around with the car trying to get it up and running. We weren't making any headway. We knew there were a lot of electrical problems. You'd get in the car and you'd try to start it and you'd see some lights on the dash would light up and some wouldn't, and the windows wouldn't work and the blinkers wouldn't work, but the horn would. And it was so hit and miss with things that were electrical. I can't even remember everything. It's been months. But I just gave up and said, I've got a guy I know. He did I used to have a Z06 Corvette, C5 Z06, and he did a full motor swap for me, which is a very difficult endeavor because he had to take, well, I don't know if this is true, but I'm not sure if you were supposed to do it this way, but he took the whole shell off the top of the drivetrain to do the motor swap. So it was a lot of work, and so I trusted him based off of that experience. And I told him what's going on. I said, hey, I got this car. I got it for a buddy. He's going through some bad times, and if you could really help me out getting this car back on the road, I'd really appreciate it. And he's like, yeah, no problem. I'd love to help you out again. No big deal. Let's get it over here. So I towed it over to him. And he started texting me here and there, sending me stuff. I found there's an electrical short. I'm gonna dig through it, and I think he said I found the short, and then he was texting some things like I'm gonna replace. I had to replace these other things. Sorry, he didn't ask me. I want to be clear. He didn't ask me for permission to replace things. He just started replacing other things, and spark plugs and the valve cover gasket, and radiator issues, and there was a list of stuff. So about a week later, he says, okay, your car's ready to pick up. And I said, cool, that sounds good. How do you want me to pay? He's like, if you can pay cash, it's the best, but I can take card. And I was like, okay, cool, how much? Send me an invoice. He sends me the invoices. It was like $1,350 or something insane. The car was worth, if it was running at the time, I think a 2001 Toyota Camry, it has 190,000 miles. I think it's probably worth $1,000. And so I said, dude, you got to be, messing with me here. And he goes, no, why would I be messing with you? And I was like, that's just nuts. Why would I pay more than the car's worth just to fix it? I could just send it to scrap. And he said, you just told me to fix it. And I was like, I didn't tell you to just fix it. I asked you if you could help me fix it. And typically how that would play out is that you would do a diagnosis and tell me how much it's going to cost. That's how things usually work. And that's how it worked last time I brought a car to you. And he was like, that's not what you said. And I said, yeah, actually it was. It was all in text message. We barely even, I think we may have talked on the phone once before I even sent the car in. Anyway, I was pretty frustrated with him. And he ends up saying to me, swear to God, he said, tell me how to make the big bucks. After I started arguing with him over the price, he said, tell me how to make the big bucks. Now, this guy, when I had my Z06, at the tail end of him finishing my Z06, I just bought my GTR. And I brought it over to his shop so he could see it. And that was a mistake, because he basically judged me as some rich white boy because of my GTR. And that's why he overcharged me and asked me how to make the big bucks, because he knew about my GTR. And I think that's complete bullshit. You shouldn't charge someone a different price because you know that they were able to save up and afford a certain car. Even if they're wealthy, you shouldn't be charging certain people different prices. So I argued with him for back and forth, and ended up him saying, "What would you want to pay?" And I said $500, and he said, "Fine, $500." And so came down to $500. But I mean, what a bad experience. By going from $1,300 to $500 and making me feel like an idiot and trying to make me feel bad. Why would I ever bring a car back to him? So anyway, I picked up the car, and it was running. It seemed like everything was fine, and I took it over to AAA. I got the title, so I got in line to do the title, and AAA said, "Oh wow." The lady she's looking at her screen. She said, "Oh wow." And I said, "That doesn't sound good." And she said, "Yeah, do you know that there's a lot of back fees on this?" No. The guy I bought the car from told me that he was registering it non-op. She said, "No, he hasn't paid anything for like 3 or 4 years. Had $700 of back fees." So I literally just got done arguing with the mechanic about $1,300 that he wanted to charge me, and it got down to $500, which was still a lot. And then $700 of back fees. She was nice enough to bring it. I told her the story, and she brought the price down to $400, I think 30 or 420, something like that. But still, now you're looking at this car, like, all right, within a few weeks, it went from, it's a pretty good thing. I don't know how much I paid for the laptop. I could have paid $50. I could have paid $0. I could have paid $300. I probably didn't pay $400 because I was probably selling it for $400 and I make money on it. But it could have been, whatever. It could have been $200. Let's just say it was probably $50, but it could have been $200. I don't know. But there was a value associated with that laptop. And then there was a battery, which I have here on a spreadsheet on my screen, $80, and a fuel pump that was $24. So I wasn't in too deep with that stuff. It was $100 that I had spent on those parts, and but now we're talking $100 plus $430 plus $500. So that's over $1,000. I already paid more than the car was worth right off the bat. And I text messaged the guy I bought the car from and said, "Hey man, you scammed me, you ripped me off." He said, "I don't know what you're talking about. You're full of shit and stuff." He got it. He was pretty nasty, and he said he didn't like my tone of voice. And I told him exactly what happened, and I said, "I can't believe you let me come into your house with your family and rip me off to my face in front of your family. How do you live with yourself?" And he just went off on text message, "F you, F that, blah 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 blah." Then he starts telling me that I sold him a broken laptop. I traded the laptop I traded him is broken. It's been in the shop the whole time. I was like, dude, when we first started this whole thing, I was like, I have 100 laptops in my warehouse, so let's try to find one that would work for you. He knew I owned a computer business, and that I had a lot of other computers. If the laptop was broken, don't you think he would have said something? He told me, I just thought you were a scammer and you wouldn't have responded. Who scams over a broken Camry? I mean, God. Well, he did. But I honestly don't think he was a scammer. I think he was just very negligent. And in my opinion, he was negligent, but he's also unethical, because if I was in his shoes and I would have been negligent and accidentally ripped someone off, I would have took care of it. I would have said, I'm really sorry. I had no idea. And how much did it cost? What can we work something out? Maybe I would have said, yeah, let's split it. I mean, can you at least throw me a couple $100 to make this work out? Something. But he was just F you, F that. You know, he kind of had a tone of like, I'm gonna show up at your house type of thing. And yeah, not fun. So moving on. The story does not end. Now I've got my $1,000 Camry that I'm driving from AAA, and now I have to get it Smog. So there's another fee I have to pay, Smog fee, right? So I get in the car and I turn it on at the AAA dealership. It's not a dealership, AAA office, and check engine light comes on. I'm like, great. Can't in California, anyone that does, I don't know where you live, but in California you can't smog a car with a check engine light on. It's like one of the biggest no-nos. They'll just tell you to go away right away and go get your check engine light fixed before you do your smog test. So I'm like, oh great, okay, now I need to go figure out what this is. So drove the car home, and I've got, the old expired tags, which are right here in this picture that I have pulled up here. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. I think it says 2006. So maybe they're not 3 or 4 years old. They're probably 2. But it was a lot. It was still that much money. The amount of money I said was correct. So I've got to figure out what's going on, why there's a check engine light. So I go over to like a O'Reilly's, pull some codes, and it's showing it's misfiring on multiple cylinders and that it has a EGR issue. So I order some new wires, which I have on this list here. Let's see. Wire set, NGK wire set, and I order ignition coil set, and I ordered a new EGR valve. So I spent another $80 or $90 there. And then actually I also bought some testing equipment too that I didn't put on the spreadsheet to get to that point. I got like a spark tester. I think they're like 10 or $15, and I checked each wire to see if it was giving spark, and one of them was giving a really faint spark. So I thought that it was either the wire or the coil, and so I replaced those. And it after replacing those things, the car wouldn't start at all. And anyone that, sorry, I'm gonna back up just because I'll forget this. I replaced the wipers because they were like straight metal on glass. I replaced one of the side mirrors was cracked, so I just got a cheap one that like it double stick tapes or whatever onto right over the old one. And then the power window switch was busted, so I couldn't roll the windows up and down, so I grabbed one of those. And at one point I thought that my ignition starter switch was bad, so I replaced that too. This is all stuff that I did. I spend a lot of time doing all these things and troubleshooting. But let's go forward to what I was just talking about. So I did put the new wires on and put in new ignition coils. There's 2 in this vehicle. So I replaced those, and then the vehicle wouldn't start. And I had neighbors over, hey, here's the diagram of the wiring, and here's what I did. Why isn't it starting? We were completely baffled. We worked on it 2 different days for probably an hour each day, going through, checking fuses, all sorts of stuff, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Nothing was making sense. But we kept thinking that the wires were not installed correctly, because if you don't know this, like you have your coil packs, and they have there's 2 coil packs, and each coil pack has 2, I don't know what you call them, coils per pack or whatever they are, but basically each knob on each coil pack, so there's 4 total of these knob things, or anoids, whatever you want to call them, that they feed a wire that runs to a spark plug. And so I replaced those when I replaced those wires. You have to run the wire exactly perfectly from the right connection from the ignition coil to the right spark plug. And so I use a diagram that I found on the internet for the same year make. Everything was, it was 2001 Toyota Camry 2.2. And it didn't look right though, because some of the wires just didn't look like they were either too long or too tight. It just didn't feel right, but that was what it said to do. Um, anyway, so couldn't get it to work. Towed it to a different mechanic over the weekend, and he immediately called me back and said, "Oh, you got the wires installed incorrectly in the wrong order. I fixed it for you." And so that was great. I'm not going to tell you how much he charged me, but it was not. It's not in the spreadsheet. Let's just say it that way. It's not in the spreadsheet. It was a good deal. He was very nice. I told him the story, and he helped me out. So I drove over there, picked up the car. He said, so I still need to get it smogged at this point, right? So he said to drive it about a quarter tank of gas, try to keep it under 40 miles per hour, stop slow, start slow, just drive like a grandma basically for quarter tank of gas, which is not easy for me to do. I've got a lot of stuff going on all the time, and that's like 2 hours of driving around doing nothing is what that is. So I didn't do that, and I mean I started it, but I hadn't finished it. And today I had to drive down to the DMV in downtown San Diego. So I was like, oh, I'll just cruise the Camry down there and get some more miles on it and keep burning some of the gas. And as I get onto the freeway, I was probably 2 or 3 miles in on the freeway. The check engine light came back on. Sorry, I didn't tell you this. So when I took the car to the mechanic who gave me a really good deal I just mentioned, the check engine light went away, and I was really pumped up because I was like, oh, I fixed the problem. I just didn't fix it. I didn't put the wires on correctly, but at least I diagnosed and solved the problem. But no, I didn't, because the check engine light came back on. He had cleared the code, so it just wasn't showing. So I'm like, great. Good news is I went to the DMV today. I took the used car sales license test. You have to get a certificate in a 6-hour class first, and then you can take the test. I passed the test, so I'm one step closer to getting my used car sales license, which I will probably make another video on, because if you're in California and you like cars and you sell at least one car a year on average because you're a car guy, you should just get your car sales license no matter what. Even if you're not going to own a dealership or whatever, like a big dealership. But anyway, back on track. I run the car back up to the guy that fixed the wires for me today after the DMV, and he ran the codes. Said that it's showing an EGR code. So I'm not sure if the misfiring is gone yet, because he said that because of the EGR code, his reader wouldn't tell him what the new code was. So he cleared the codes, and he said, replace your, since I've already replaced the EGR valve itself, that I should replace the EGR modulator. So I tracked one down at AutoZone tonight, drove up there, grabbed it. I gotta tell you, that was one of the easiest installations of any car part I've ever done in my entire life. It was, there are 4 lines that run to it, and it just is held in by a clip. I did it in like less than 1 minute, no joke. So pulled my wife's car out of the garage, threw the Camry in, popped the hood, just connected some vacuum hoses and put them right back onto another one, and took the car back outside on the street and put my wife's car back in. And then just when you just saw me driving a minute ago, that's what I was doing. So the codes are clear, the check engine light was off. I had the new EGR modulator installed, which I was hoping was the fix, and got on the freeway, and about 2 miles and no 1 mile in, the check engine light came back on. So here I am. Spent what's the total here? $1,200, $1,231 to be exact. Probably a little bit more for a tank of gas. You know, I still have to pay about another $80 in smog. So I'm just trying to get this car to my buddy so he can get back on his feet, get a job, and get to job interviews and stuff like that. And someone doesn't want me to give this guy this car. I mean, it's sorry Terrence, I'm sure you're watching this, but it's just like Terrence and I we're almost getting a kick out of it. I mean, in a way, because he just had this really bad set of like just bad luck all happening one thing after another. And because this thing went wrong, this other snowball effect, right? This thing went wrong, and then because he lost his car, he couldn't get to this, and because he couldn't do that, he lost like, he couldn't do this, and then things just snowballed because one problem led to another. And this car is like the same thing. It's like it just doesn't want to um, get fixed. But tell you what, he's a good guy, and he deserves to get himself back on his feet. And I'm gonna help him no matter what I need to do to get this car working again, so that he can drive this car and get shit done. I'm gonna get this car fixed, and I want it to be almost like a symbol of, hey, this car that has all these problems is working again, and you had all these problems and you can get working again too. So it's like a metaphor, whatever you want to call it. But gotta motivate your buddy. You gotta help your friends out when you can and motivate them. And sometimes you don't realize it, but you might be the only person that person has to help them. And you need to step up. I mean, it feels a lot better to help out someone than give $5 to a beggar, a begging homeless person on a off ramp that you don't know if they're just going to get into their regular car and put on their regular clothes and go to their house where they make $100,000 a year just panhandling, or they're just going to go spend on booze. I mean, I'd much rather have a person that I'm going to specifically help and see them through. It's the first time I've ever done something like that. So I haven't finished yet, but I'll be very happy when I get this car to him, and I know he will be too. All right, this is a long video, and I'm gonna cut it here late. And for anyone that listens to the whole story, let me know what you think. Thanks, guys.